forcing Speaker Johnson's hand on the Epstein investigation. In a major escalation tonight, the Attorney General of Arizona and Congresswoman-elect Adelaide Grijalva of Arizona are suing Mike Johnson, and they're suing him because Grijalva has not been sworn in.
This isn't just a procedural fight. It's a political earthquake shaking Washington to its core. Speaker Mike Johnson now faces a lawsuit accusing him of blocking a newly elected congresswoman's swearing in just to delay the release of the Epstein files. Think about that. The Speaker of the House allegedly stalling democracy itself to keep certain names and records buried. This is chaos, power, and accountability colliding in real time. And it could blow open more than Johnson's leadership.
Forcing Speaker Johnson's hand on the Epstein investigation. In a major escalation tonight, the Attorney General of Arizona and Congresswoman-elect Adelaide Grijalva of Arizona are suing Mike Johnson, and they're suing him because Grijalva has not been sworn in. So what does all this have to do with Jeffrey Epstein? Because it does at its heart. Grijalva is the final vote needed for a bipartisan maneuver called a discharge petition that goes around Johnson. Because he does not want a vote to release the full Epstein files. This would go around him, get that vote to release the files. Grijalva was elected in Arizona 28 days ago, a whole month. And Johnson has, in that time, used every excuse not to swear her in.
Look, we'll schedule it, I guess, as soon as she wants. It has nothing to do with...
As soon as the Democrats vote to reopen the government.
She deserves to have all the pomp and circumstance that everybody else does. Have her family and friends in the balcony.
But,
so if she flies in her family, would you guys do it?
Grijalva, she'll get the full bells and whistles. It hasn't been scheduled because
right?
we don't schedule things for pro forma.
And when Grijalva called Johnson out on not swearing her in and doing it, she says, to protect Jeffrey Epstein and his high-powered clients, Johnson had this to say.
Bless her heart, she's a representative-elect. She doesn't know how it works around here.
Well, putting the condescension aside, she does know she's supposed to be sworn in. That, of course, is Democracy 101, right? You get elected by the people of your state and you get sworn in. That's democracy. And tonight, the Arizona Attorney General, Kris, whom I'll be speaking to in just a moment, writes, and I quote, in this lawsuit, Speaker Johnson has not identified any valid reason for refusing to promptly seat Ms. Grijalva. Instead, on information and belief, Speaker Johnson wishes to delay seating Ms. Grijalva to prevent her from signing a discharge petition that would force a vote on the release of the Epstein files. And just a few moments ago, Johnson just responded.
I think it's patently absurd. We run the House. She has no jurisdiction. We're following the precedent. She's looking for national publicity. Apparently she's gotten some of it, but good luck with that.
Johnson on defense, and it is not just because of this specific lawsuit that was just filed. It is actually because Republicans, members of his own party in the House, are speaking out. Because many of them want the Epstein files released now, and they know that Grijalva's vote is the key to that.
It baffles me. To me, this is the easiest one to do. This is standing up for women and children who are raped, who are victims of sex trafficking. And this is for victims that are facing horrible consequences right now due to abuse. And I can't understand why this has been seemingly the biggest fight in Washington, D.C. It certainly shouldn't be.
She's completely right about that. It all comes on the same day the memoir of the most high-profile Epstein accuser, Virginia Giuffre, was published. Giuffre died by suicide after the decades of suffering she endured. She died earlier this year. But before she took her own life, she documented the unimaginable abuse that she suffered because of Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, who, of course, is convicted. Abuse that Virginia writes from, quote, came from a multitude of powerful men. Among them were a gubernatorial candidate who was soon to win election in a Western state and a former U.S. senator. Since Epstein usually neglected to introduce me to these men by name or introduce them at all, I would only learn who some of them were years later when I studied photographs of Epstein's associates and recognized the faces of those I was forced to have sex with. Giuffre even documents her abuse from a prime minister. In that case, she writes that he, quote, wasn't interested in caresses, he wanted violence. He repeatedly choked me until I lost consciousness and took pleasure in seeing me in fear for my life. Horrifically, the prime minister laughed when he hurt me and got more aroused when I begged him to stop. I mean, this is despicable stuff. It's pretty awful to have to sit here and even read sentences like that. Never mind to imagine there's a person who wrote them because they happened to her. Because not one of those men has been held accountable. Not one. And many of them right now, as we speak, are in circles of high society. Their friends might even see this. Their friends might even suspect or know, but they're just continuing along in high society. And that is wrong. And they must face accountability. Releasing the Epstein files, it should not be one of the biggest fights in Washington. Marjorie Taylor Greene is right about that. And perhaps Johnson is starting to feel the pressure because earlier today he was on the defense about the Epstein vote, saying to Politico, quote, the bipartisan House Oversight Committee is already accomplishing what the discharge petition, the gambit, sought and much more. It's important to just get to the bottom of this, though, when that is said, if that argument is made, to point out that that is false. Because the Oversight Committee, they are doing work, but they are releasing documents that are only a fraction of what exist. According to Ro Khanna on the committee, he and obviously he's a Democrat, Massey, a Republican, the files are just 1 gigabyte. 1 gigabyte of what the Oversight Committee has. That's what they have. There are 300 gigabytes of files that are known that the FBI said exist. So that is 1/300th of the total. Right? And much of that 1/300th was already known to be public. Johnson knows all of this. So when he is claiming he is all for transparency in this, and when it comes to Epstein, saying if it hits 218, it comes to the floor. That's how it works. If you get the signatures, it goes to a vote. Well, of course, in a sense, that's talking in circles because you only get to 218 if. Why did we just talk about Epstein for a few minutes? Because you actually have to seat Congresswoman-elect Adelaide Grijalva. She has to be sworn in. That is the 218th vote. And perhaps Grijalva herself has said it best. Here's what she told me.
So if this has nothing to do with the Epstein files, then swear me in.
Kris is the Democratic Attorney General of Arizona. She's out front. She, along with Congresswoman-elect Grijalva, has just filed a lawsuit against the House of Representatives for refusing to seat Grijalva. And this is the Attorney General's first interview since filing that suit. So, Attorney General Mays, I appreciate your time. And, we have this breaking news. You're filing this suit. And just moments ago, we heard from Speaker Johnson just responding to your suit. He says, and I quote him, it's patently absurd. We run the House. She has no jurisdiction, end quote. What do you say to him? What's the basis for your lawsuit?
Well, what we're saying to him and what we're asking a court to do is, declare that if Mike Johnson refuses to do his job, that Adelaide Grijalva can be sworn in by a judge or any other person with the capability under the law to swear her in. And, Mike Johnson can end this tomorrow by swearing Adelaide in. She was duly elected by the people of Arizona, and we now have 813,000 Arizonans who are being taxed without representation in our state because Mike Johnson refuses to swear her in. So, we didn't want to have to file this lawsuit, but it's been 4 weeks now, Aaron, since she was elected. 4 weeks where she has not been able to do her job, serve her constituents. We've got issues here, including flooding in her district. She hasn't been able to serve veterans and deal with other issues like Social Security. It's time. Time's up.
So how quickly, you're saying a judge could do this, someone could get her seated right away. How quickly do you expect this lawsuit to move? I mean, essentially, is this something that could really result in her getting seated, sworn in by a judge or somebody in the next day or two? Or is this something more to make a point of precedent, and by the time this all works its way through, Johnson will have eventually done it?
Well, I wish Johnson would do it right now. In fact, I believe the Congresswoman-elect is in D.C. right now. He could walk over to her office right now and do it. Look, we are hoping that this lawsuit results quickly in Adelaide Grijalva being sworn in. We're going to a judge in Washington, D.C., asking that judge to declare that she is eligible to be sworn in. And if Mike Johnson and the House of Representatives, run by the Republicans right now, refuse to do it, that someone else can do it so she can.
Have you had any interactions with Speaker Johnson about this? I mean, I know you had initially sent a letter to him. That was 8 days ago, and you threatened the lawsuit. And now he's responding, obviously, in the statement that we have. But have you had any interaction with him at all at this point?
I mean, sadly, no. I mean, all we have heard from Speaker Johnson is basically comments on shows like yours, and he has not responded directly to us, and he's basically thumbing his nose at 813,000 Arizonans who don't have a representative, and my state is now down a representative. That's not okay. It violates the Constitution. It violates the law.
What we're witnessing is the clash between transparency and control. The age-old battle that defines Washington's soul. Speaker Mike Johnson insists he's just following precedent, but every stall, every procedural delay feels less like process and more like protection. Protection of who, exactly? Because when one political figure can stand between the American public and the full truth about Jeffrey Epstein's network, that's not leadership. That's gatekeeping. And this shouldn't divide along party lines. Whether you're conservative, liberal, or somewhere in between, the question is the same. Does justice still matter when power is on the line? The lawsuits, the secrecy, the excuses, all of it paints a picture of a Washington establishment more committed to its own survival than to the truth it owes the people who put them there. And if the Epstein files really are the reason this fight is dragging on, then history will remember not just the crimes, but those who stood in the way of uncovering them. So what do you think? Is this just political maneuvering or a moral failure unfolding in plain sight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns like this.